recording this video. It is on now. If you are here to hear from the great Erin, Erin, how do I say her last name?
Rehberg.
Rehberg, thank you. From Thomas County. Oh yeah, turn off your cell phones and your phones. Bathrooms are down the hall in case you need to go use the restroom. And so welcome. This is a fantastic turnout. Looks like we have 16 participants so far. If you're here to listen to Erin about her presentation on how Thomas County and the entire team there worked on creating their computer science plan, their computer science strategy and coordination. I'll let her describe what she did, and you're at the right place. So if you want to introduce yourself, please just do that in the chat function. We will take questions both verbally and in the chat function when the time arrives. Feel free to keep typing in the chat box. I will be monitoring that. Brian will take over once the presentation is done and just chat with Erin. And Julie Sharp is on the call as well in case you want to hear from someone else who's local and supporting those efforts. I'm going to stop there. If you have any questions, please just post them in the chat function. We are recording again. And with that, Erin, I hand it over to you. You can introduce yourself, and the gentleman next to you and can introduce himself, and then you can just start your presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you, Co. As Co said, I'm Erin Rehberg with Thomas County Schools. If you don't know where Thomas County is, we are about as far south as you can get and still be in Georgia. We are southwest, just north of Tallahassee. So I am going to share my screen here in just a moment. Dr. Sweeting, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm Scott Sweeting. I'm Rehberg's partner in crime. I kind of help basically be a sounding board for a lot of the computer science that goes on here at Thomas County Schools. I'm a science coordinator, and so our roles kind of overlap here and there. So I'm glad to be a part of this conversation. So thank you for having me along.
One of the main reasons that I invited Dr. Sweeting to sit in with me is the fact that rolling out K-12 computer science initiative is not work that one person can do by themselves. And as a matter of fact, I feel like I am just doing a lot of talking today about the work that other people have done. This has been a process. It has not been something that we could start overnight, and it even expect to be done well within 1 or 2 years. So we'll talk a little bit about our journey on here. The reason that we feel computer science is so important, one is we are a rural district in the southern part of the state, and we feel that it is important for our students to be just as prepared for Georgia Tech, UGA, any major university they may want to go to as the kids in Metro Atlanta are. We want to give them every possible opportunity here in rural South Georgia. We also know that computer science jobs, we just read an article last week that says they're the #1 source of new wages in the United States. So it is of just vast importance that we prepare our students for the careers that await them. So we'll get started. Just so you know how our district is laid out, we have approximately 6,000 students. All of our students go to the same pre-K and kindergarten school. They all go to the same 1st and 2nd grade school, and you can see that they go through a 3rd and 4th, a 5th through 8th, and then a 9th through 12th. So we don't have an issue here of one elementary school having a great computer science teacher and another school's program lacking, because all of our students are exposed to the same teachers and the same curriculum. And another part about our program is all students have an opportunity to participate in computer science. It's not something that's just reserved for the kids who are interested or gifted students, but we have students K through 12 and students with special needs all the way through. Every type of student in our district has access to computer science education. Now, what has our timeline looked like. In 2015, we just sort of started with some small coding activities in the classrooms, the Hour of Code week. We saw that kids just really took to those activities. They jumped right on them. The teacher could know nothing about coding or computer science, and their kids could just run with the activities that they were allowing them to do. So then in 2016, we began seeking some grants that could allow us to expand our computer science program. We got a grant that was in partnership with GOSA and our RESA that was a Project Lead the Way grant. Dr. Sweeting can talk more about that, but when the Project Lead the Way curriculum was selected, the modules that were chosen were the coding and computer science modules, and those start in kindergarten. Go ahead.
No, I can just say, as Erin was saying, when we adopted Project Lead the Way, we adopted a K through 12 computer science pathway. And everywhere I go, I love bragging about the fact that we have our kindergartners using iPads, and they began coding at the kindergarten level. And we've done this now for the past 3 years. And like I said, this goes all the way through high school. This basically touches every student, K through 8. Once they get to the high school, they have a choice as to whether to continue or not. But we've started to see a lot of the progress that we were hoping for, as far as kids being able to come into a classroom now, having had coded for the last 2 years, and now they can start out, and we've been able to actually expand on some modules of Project Lead the Way, because students are able to move through some of these modules faster, so they're getting better, and so we hope that that's going to help them compete with anybody else in the state or in the country when it comes to computer science, if they wanted to pursue that as a career one day.
And around the same time that we started the Project Lead the Way modules, we also got an additional grant from GOSA. It was a K-12 computer science coding professional learning grant that really allowed us to expand the opportunities that we are able to offer our students. So two of the biggest key things I would say for getting a computer science program started, one is to seek the funding that's needed. The other thing is to carve out time in your day, be creative with scheduling, and we'll talk a little bit more about scheduling here in a minute. And the biggest piece of all of this was the vision of our former superintendent, Dr. Cornegay, as well as our teaching and learning superintendent, Miss Melanie Chavot. So if the people at the top are not supportive of the vision, you're going to have a harder time getting something like this off the ground and going. So really the vision from the people who are closest to the decisions that are made is very important with any project that you do, but that was vastly important with this as well. In 2017, we were one of 5 districts from across Georgia to be a part of the CS for Georgia initiative, which allowed us to sit down with the team and talk about goal setting, both short-term and long-term goal setting. And then this year, or this school year, back in the fall, we had a day where we brought in about 20 teachers who either teach computer science and coding all day, or just teach a Project Lead the Way module at some point in the year with their students. And we had a day of vertical alignment that was really great.
Extremely fruitful, yeah.
And so we started that day and I have the agenda from the day linked here. Let's see if I can pull it up. We really started that day just all sitting around the table. Can you see my agenda? Let's see. Are you seeing my agenda here?
No, we're still seeing your...
Okay, let me try. New share. How about now?
Yep, see it now.
Okay, so we started that day just with a TED Talk from the code.org founder, and talked about why computer science is important. We've actually got the chart up there behind our head, in our conference room here, where we just had the teachers write down why they felt like computer science was important. And, you know, they said things like it's the careers that our students will have, that it teaches students to be creative, that it teaches them to work collaboratively, all of these great things of why computer science is important. But then I think the most important part was this part, the share time, and everybody sat around the table. And from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, talked about what they do and what they teach and what their students learn. And so the reason that that was so impactful and beneficial is, you know, our teachers teach in isolation, and they know they're teaching this, but they didn't see what came before. And then the neatest thing was to see what opportunities lay down the road for their students, especially for like our elementary teachers, to know all of the opportunities that our students had available. And they just never had that conversation. They knew what they taught, they knew what they did, but it really allowed everybody to see the full picture and the big picture view of what we do. And one of the greatest parts of that conversation was, like the middle school teacher said, 2 or 3 years ago, my students did not come into my room having the skills that they have now. So for us as leaders, that was really powerful to hear that what we were doing is working, and that students are learning. So when you start something, you know, your 5th grade kids who've never coded before are going to be basically at the same place that your 1st grade students are. But as time goes on, you can see that those skills, the students are really honing their skills and are coming in with more knowledge, if that makes sense. So let me swap back to my PowerPoint here.
And if I could just say real quick, this vertical alignment day was even better than what I expected. It was a whole new level of buy-in that, you know, we struggle in the beginning. You know, there are some teachers or administrators that may have, you know, been doubtful about what we're doing. It's getting away from what we're all used to. And so it took a lot of work and a lot of convincing to get that buy-in for the students. They start to see their students what they're doing in class and how much they were enjoying it and what they were getting out of it. That was difficult. But this vertical alignment day, like I said, I felt like it was a whole new level of buy-in, and teachers left that day feeling really good about what they do and the importance of what they're teaching in the classroom.
So the last part of that day, we took a scope and sequence from San Francisco that we learned about at the CS for Georgia meeting that we went to last year, and we adapted it to what we do here. So let me see if I can share this screen with you. This is our district website on our digital learning page. Can you see the website? Okay. If you click on our computer science logo, there's just a little brief summary here of what we do and some resources, but this here is the scope and sequence that we worked on. You have to sort of scroll and look and see, but you can see what computational thinking skills are involved, at which grade level, and how they progress. And then down at the bottom, we just did a little summary of, at every age level, what the final project is for computer science for the students at that age level. So this allows us, or at that grade level, so this allows us to lay everything out, see what our students are doing at what level and how that's building on a skill they already had, or if it's a new skill. But that is on our website if anybody wants to check it out later. So it's just on the Thomas County Schools website, digital learning, computer science. You would be able to see that. Should I stop now for questions, or are we good? Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go back to my PowerPoint, and this PowerPoint is very long, and I was told that I have 10 minutes. And so, of course, I don't have time to read through all of this. I am willing to share this with anyone. My email address is on here at the beginning. I will be happy to send you this PowerPoint. I'm sure that Brian could send it out as well. but it just
we will
has
send it out when we do the MailChimp update to everybody. So
okay, great.
everybody go to csforgeorgia.org and sign up for our MailChimp. And then we will be posting the video recording, PowerPoint, and a summary of the main points that Erin shared. So please sign up so that you can get it. And of course, you can email Erin as well and talk to her about her great work.
Yeah, so the PowerPoint just sort of has what the kids do at every level, kindergarten. In our first and second grade school, they do computer science in a science special that they rotate to every 6 days. He takes them, by the time they finish that school at second grade, they're finished with course B on code.org. They also do Project Lead the Way in their classrooms. All of that is described here. They use Scratch Junior at that age level. Then they go to a coding special every 9 days during 3rd and 4th grade, where they start doing more robotics, especially using block-based coding. That was another great thing about our vertical alignment day, is that our high school computer science teacher, told the teachers, block-based coding is coding. Your students are coding when they do that. And so another part of the conversation was, our students are doing lots of different things. But our takeaway from that day is really that we're exposing them to so many different languages, to so many different programs along the way, so that when they get to high school, they just have a vast amount of knowledge of the different programs, or at least a little bit of knowledge about them. Middle school, they have an exploratory class. Then 8th grade students can go ahead and take the high school Intro to Digital Technology class and earn a high school credit. But then, of course, on here also we have what they do at Project Lead the Way with their science teacher at every level. And the thing we do like about Project Lead the Way is it's real world applications of these skills. 8th grade is MIT App Inventor. And then, of course, when they get to the high school, they can choose to be in the computer science pathway, hopefully culminating with a passing score on the AP Computer Science test, or at least prepared for the next level. We have several recruitment efforts that are going on. We have a Girls Who Code Club at our middle school. We have coding camps in the summer. That's a great way to get students interested in coding and interested in the high school computer science program. We have a middle school camp at the high school that students can attend. It's taught by our high school computer science teacher, so he's able to build up some interest for the computer science pathway. And that was my last slide. So I'm going to turn it back over to Brian and Co.
All right, you want to stop sharing? Well, yeah, you could stop sharing now if you want.
I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to stop my video.
We are up to 18 folks now. And so for folks who are going to ask questions, for now, I'm going to mute everybody. So there's except Erin and Brian. And if you have a question, you can either type it in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask your question. With that, Brian, I'll hand it back to you to dialogue with Erin and ask others for questions.
Thanks, Co. That was fantastic, Erin. Thanks a lot. That was very comprehensive. And I think what's been most beneficial is that people get to see each grade level and how this can be implemented throughout the grade levels. A real quick question somebody had for Dr. Sweeting. April asked, do the kids use Swift programming language?
I'll answer that. We do have it available at the middle school, but I don't think it is an integral part of the curriculum there.
Okay. All right. I noticed that so you're using the Project Lead the Way, but then you also supplement it with a lot of other things. And I remember in my classroom that I had like a backbone that I used that was like a common thread, and then I had projects that I layered on top of that. When you did your vertical alignment, were some of those projects aligned from one grade to the next, or was the Project Lead the Way the thing that connects everybody throughout grades?
That's a good question. I think that the project Lead the Way projects for K-8 were sort of used as the exemplary projects in our vertical alignment day. So yes, Project Lead the Way was the backbone, especially K-8.
Okay. Let's see. Somebody asked, could you give more detail about the Project Lead the Way?
Project Lead the Way is a STEM curriculum. And within the STEM curriculum, there are specific coding courses.
And they go through different programs. We talked about, Scratch Junior, Scratch. Vex Robotics is the one primarily used in the 5th grade. Innovators and Makers is also in the 7th grade that is used for making coding sensory technology, pressure, temperature sensors, and such, using microbits. 8th grade App Creators is the App Creator software, and they, of course, they are creating apps that they get to, of course, the coding they've learned in the previous grades, get to apply that knowledge and use it there. Once we get to the high school, we actually have 3 different pathways that the kids can now choose. We've gone from computer science, but we also, there's an engineering and there's a biomedical pathway as well at the high school. And so there's a couple of courses that they'll take, and there's a pathway they can go and get certification for those courses.
And I will say too that, Project Lead the Way, there's a cost involved, and we had a grant for that, but there are plenty of other free programs. So, if you don't have a grant to implement Project Lead the Way, it doesn't mean you can't implement coding and computer science. I mean, we've found that there's a lot of value in the code.org resources, a lot. I mean, you could just put students on that and they would definitely learn a lot through that program as well.
I think that's very helpful. A lot of times especially new teachers are looking for some sort of a textbook, basically, something that'll guide them from exactly what they need to know. And then as they get more comfortable with their curriculum, they can branch out and add this and add that and kind of supplement it with more impactful pieces. So I think the fact that there are some K-12 solutions is very helpful for beginning districts and teachers.
Well, and the person that asked that about more detail about Project Lead the Way and best practice for K2, I mean, there are a lot of activities that can be done without devices at that age. Just getting kids to understand logistics and following arrows and understanding a sequence. And we start our pre-K students just with doing some sort of obstacle courses that use the symbols that they will see in Scratch or Scratch Junior eventually. So the other thing as well is I think sometimes teachers are apprehensive. Just, a regular elementary classroom teacher thinks they don't know enough about coding to teach it. But it really is amazing how quickly the students learn and how they don't. It's almost better if you don't give them a lot of guidance, if you let them do things and learn for themselves as well.
That was some of the some of the biggest detractors, or the teachers that probably fought it the most, have now become our biggest cheerleaders. I think about the robotics. A lot of teachers were not comfortable with robotics, and once they put the materials and the software out in front of the kids picked up on it in a hurry, and were actually helping to teach the teacher how to put things together and how to code. And it's just amazing how quickly they picked up. And of course, the teachers helped them to buy in once they saw just how much their students were enjoying it and how quickly they picked up on it.
I love the obstacle course functionality. I actually plan obstacle courses for young people all the time. And just the ability to follow those directions is a great first step in regards to getting comfortable with coding. April asked, do you use code.org curriculum or Google CS for all to teach Scratch?
Well, our the Scratch lessons are part of the Project Lead the Way curriculum.
So you mentioned that you had a grant to start off with Project Lead the Way. Is that still going, or is the grant run out? And if the grant's over, how do you sustain that?
Our grants are over, all of those grants that we mentioned, but in the time between getting the grant and now, our finance department has just built it into the local budget.
Someone asked, do you have a focus for sharing, introducing careers in the field of CS?
That's probably a place we could grow.
Yes.
Helping to get kids to, share with them what just, the specific careers. There are so many out there on what they can do in computer science. So that's one place we could, definitely grow in helping kids to know exactly what they can do.
Oh, and one area, there are definitely some computer science jobs in our part of the state, but not as many as there might be in other parts of the state.
So to that, I'm off mute. So to that end, I've recently talked to somebody about doing a pilot program in one of their CTAE teaching as a career pathways, and starting to talk to those students that are interested in teaching, and maybe, introducing them to computer science teaching as an option for their careers. One of the things that they were talking about is changing the perception of a teacher. Like as a teaching career, it's the only career where you have the opportunity, if you're an entrepreneur or you're an artist or something else, you have some time to work on your craft while you still have a full paying salary. So if you're a programmer or an entrepreneur programmer, for instance, an app designer, you have a summer where you can spend designing apps, and then you can practice your craft during the school year with your students. So teaching as a career is a nice place to start with young people. Speaking of that, Erin, Julie asked, would you talk about the TIP experience that you all organized in January?
Oh, sure. We, every January on the day when we come back from the winter holidays, it's a teacher work day, and that morning we have, it used to be called the Techno Expo. We have evolved it into the TIP Expo. TIP stands for Teaching and Instructional Practices. We just have teachers from within our district share best practices for using technology for learning. This year I think we had 30-something sessions, and teachers can choose 3 of those sessions to attend. The schedule from this year's event is actually on our digital learning page that I went to earlier to show you the computer science scope and sequence. So if you wanted to check out what courses we offered, and there are 90% of them are taught by people in our district. We do invite folks from RESA to come in and teach, and a couple of vendors, but we really feel like our teachers enjoy that and feel the benefit of it because it's led by our own people. So
yeah, I went this year, and
yes, Brian came this year.
all the teachers that I spoke to said that they actually look forward to that time. So it's interesting how a lot of times the professional development that ends the winter break is something that kind of gets in the way of your break. But those teachers seem to be excited about showing up and being exposed to some of the things that the teachers or other teachers were presenting. I saw some app development. I saw a classroom full of teachers using VR headsets to explore the Safari, and I saw one teacher jump and get excited because there was a snake at his foot. So, so it was a fantastic experience. I wish I could share that with more people. So let's see, what other questions do we have going on? You said that you were able to add some of that to your some of your costs to your budget going forward. That's a huge, huge lift.
Well, and like I said, it all goes back to the vision of the people making the decisions. So
yeah, and having the support from the top down is as we said earlier, as you said earlier, valuable. It's invaluable. And it's not just the vertical alignment of the teachers, which is a phenomenal experience in and of itself, no matter what content area you're talking about, whether it's computer science or math or ELA. The vertical alignment is great because teachers can, I think that's one of the most inspiring revelations that you have is every year you're frustrated because your students don't come prepared for your class. If one year your students all come in and they have the background prerequisite knowledge because the grade below you has decided to prepare them and you've talked and they know exactly what you expect, that's a powerful moment for a teacher.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But it's also important to have the vertical alignment as far as the district people, the administration at the school level, everybody to be on board. We found that has made huge waves in being able to adopt a K-12 computer science discipline.
Brian, I'll let you look at the chat so see if there's any question, because instead of me monitoring it, I think it's better that you look at it so you can see what other questions you want to ask Erin.
Yeah, I've been following the chat.
Okay.
Pulled something in. Jennifer just mentioned that CodeHS has PD courses for computer science that she thinks are free. Any info on the CS for GA grant? Not yet, but there is. So they will be doing it again. So that's some info, is that it will happen again. There will be another middle school CS for GA grant going out to middle schools. Another 20 schools will get some funds to help support computer science. I don't know if you all are following the legislative session, but there is a very interesting bill concerning computer science at all levels, middle, high school, and elementary school. And there's also been an ask for appropriations for PD funds. So I don't know how that's going to go. I'm not allowed to be weigh in.
I can talk about that since you can't talk about it. And so, folks, we have a CS for Georgia policy committee, and it's a coalition. I think they call themselves a coalition. So there's made up of folks who are education policy experts, and they are working hard to identify where are the next areas of progress we need in Georgia, and engage policymakers to see the possibility of whether some policy or funding that could, what role can state government play in partnership with industry and K-12 to or other education systems, education levels as well. We're of course concerned about K-12. So our group, as Brian mentioned, is been supporting the advancement of a bill out of the Senate. It is out of committee and it is making progress. It's masking for about $3 million over the next couple of years in professional development, equipment, depending on the need in the school. It'll be a application process, as was the middle school grant. So there's some good things coming our way. There was very little opposition to the bill. There's a lot of interest. All the things that Erin outlined that you've heard before about where the market is, where the economy is, where our education needs are. And policymakers realize that they can't solve it all, but they're listening. And so hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have good news about it passing and the budgeting. There's still a lot of hurdles to go through, but there is the bottom line is the policymakers are listening. They care about rural areas. So they're combined with the governor's rural policy efforts on rural areas. This education policy, focus policy, will include probably some sort of criteria for focusing on schools that are further behind and are working hard but don't have the resources. And there's other, so beyond this, so that one specific bill, there are other things, as Julie knows, as Julie took Brian and I and Dr. Caitlin Dooley from the DOE one of the main things that kept coming up, a theme was, of course, broadband in the rural areas. So separately, so that's there are many things to look at for us to improve. And one of the other important areas in the future, with all of your help, maybe that's something else we can take on, is how do we improve broadband access? Because it's pointless to do a lot of this stuff and kids don't have computers, kids don't have access to broadband, teachers don't have access to broadband. So it's those are major issues. So I hope you stay involved with CS for Georgia, and we can continue to work on it. And if you, once again, if you sign up on our MailChimp, you will keep you updated on what the Policy Coalition is doing and what they specifically advise we need to do. So, for example, we may send out a message to everybody on our MailChimp that, hey, please go talk to your policymaker, your policy representative about this bill or this issue. Or they may ask you, hey, what are some policy things you guys want to work on in the next legislative session? And between legislative sessions, there's a lot of time to engage policymakers. One of the things that I can highlight for you is in the fall, Brian and I and some others are working on a CS Summit in Georgia, the CS for Georgia Summit in Columbus, Georgia. So one of our main focuses is to do something outside of Atlanta. We'll do this as often there's resources, and we're hoping, I mean, we're just getting started. We're hoping we can pull it off. But we'll see. Our goal is to have a summit in Columbus, Georgia. So let me stop there with those two updates.
Great. Yeah, the summit seems to be something that I'm very excited about. Chance mentioned that they're trying to develop a CS endorsement course to train K-12 teachers to teach CS. And do we recommend any materials for training teachers? Erin, you have any suggestions as far as training teacher materials, teacher training materials? You're muted. I don't know if you.
You know, our teachers receive training with the Project Lead the Way core training. They've also done some of the code.org workshops and summits as well. And as was mentioned on here, the CodeHS PD courses are good also. Our teachers may be able to answer that better than me.
Okay. Hillary also mentioned that they have an endorsement at Columbus State University. There are, I think we have up to 5 endorsement programs in the state now, but the only one below Macon is the Columbus State one. A lot of them are online. CSU is online. CS for Georgia has a page. We probably need to look at it and update it, but there's a page with some professional development partners for CS for Georgia. And any professional training that comes across our desk goes out in our MailChimp. I put it on the EdWeb we have an EdWeb for computer science teachers. As a professional learning community, I put things out on there as well. So any type of training that we receive, whether it's for, I think we got some recently for ear sketch and things like that, I share it with all the teachers that are in those 2 places. So if you're not on CS for Georgia, if you're not signed up, you probably want to be, or if you're a teacher and you want to go on to the EdWeb and sign up for our computer science teachers categories, we have high school, middle school, and elementary school. A lot of the information goes through there.
Brian, this is Patricia. I made it back.
Oh, welcome back.
Hey, thank you. There are some good groups on Facebook. Can you hear me?
I can, but you're
Okay.
sharing the screen and I'm on here twice now.
Oh, yeah, weird. I don't have my camera connected. There's a Scratch Teachers Users Group. There's an APCSA Users Group, CS Principals Users Group, CS for All. So I'm not a big Facebook person, but I did sign up for a couple of those groups, and there's some pretty good dialogue going on there. And then another resource is the Adhesive course. They made some PD and courses available free of charge this year, and they're going to hold it over for next year. That's kind of a turnkey canned solution, which would be good for a beginner teacher. Something I haven't taught from it, but I'm using some of those resources for review. And I think I might use it next year with some courses. So that's Adhesive. If anybody could speak to that.
I know the Adhesive platform is who Amazon is supporting. So when they did right now they have a grant out for teachers. Well, it's a school-wide grant, but teachers can apply. And They will, they'll
That's
fund student accounts for Adhesive as well as their online platform, AWS.
that's the one I'm referring to. Yep. And they have several courses: CSA, CS Principles, Intro, and even maybe Elementary. I'm not sure.
There was another question about the middle school grant, looking at what they were looking for and how to be more, I guess, well placed in regards to receiving the grant. Erin said they received it last year and they added a lot of documentation, including a budget. I would recommend that as well. The more organized your plan is, and being able to show that you have some skin in the game, that you've been working in this space and it's not money that's just going to go and sit somewhere, that definitely matters tremendously. Anybody else can have any suggestions in regards to achieving those grants, whether it's the middle school grant or the GOSA grant or anything like that? I'm reading through some of these. Somebody said the code.org workshop was very helpful.
Is there anybody else on the call now who is also at a school district or a school and has tried to do some CS planning in their school or in their district? Would you be interested in sharing what your efforts were and what you learned in your experience so far? Yeah, you don't have to, but I thought it'd be good to check if anybody else wanted to share any of their work. One of the things that CS for Georgia is going to be doing, and we did that with Erin and her team from Thomas County, is we partnered with the CS for All consortium out of New York. It's a national consortium, and they conducted a 2-day CS script training, they call it. And basically they use a very detailed process for helping a team from a school district, so 4 to 6 representatives from each district, and about 5 districts participated a year and 3 months ago, that are from Georgia. And Erin and her team drove up from South Georgia. And so moving forward, we will be trying to conduct CS script trainings as a way to supplement whatever existing planning efforts. So for example, Thomas County has been working on this for a while. It wasn't anything new to them, but Erin, could you talk about how you found continued planning resources helpful to you? You all were already doing some planning when we asked you all to come up, and you came up and you participated in the script training. How does something like that help? So for those people who feel like, hey, I've done some planning, I'm okay. Why was it important for you and your colleagues to come up and spend all that time continuing to plan when you'd already done some planning? I can't hear you. Do you want
Okay, how about now?
There, yep.
I mean, it really just allowed us to sit down and reflect on where we were and the particular areas that we could grow in, because while we are proud that we offer computer science K-12 to all students, there's of course refining that needs to be done of that type of work. And so I just think it allowed us to reflect as a team on where we were, where we could go, and what some potential avenues would be for increasing enrollment in the high school courses. And I don't know, it's always good. You're never as good as you think you are. And so it just allowed us to talk about where we were and where we needed to go.
Great, thank you. So we will be encouraging folks to take part in those script trainings. We will be trying to organize them throughout the state as much as we can. One good news to share with those of you who may not be aware, we announced on February the 8th that the coordination and communication and some fundraising and planning efforts, so a lot of what I have been doing with Brian and Dr. Dooley is going to be taken over by TAG-Ed's Technology Association of Georgia's Education Collaborative. So Erica Moore and her team at TAG-Ed and her board members are very enthusiastic about getting this responsibility and opportunity to support this great effort that you all are part of with CS for Georgia. And one of the things that they will be trying to help figure out how to help implement is working with Brian. Brian is a trained facilitator to use it for the CS script planning. And I went with Erica Moore from TAG-Ed to San Diego, California, and we got trained. So we're growing our number of trainers, and the script so far is the main district level planning tool that seems to be universally being adopted by a lot of, where I actually, by the way, live in Providence, Rhode Island, and there's a CS for Rhode Island effort. And we actually, Brian and I mirrored our website around CS for Rhode Island, because they got a lot of funding early on, and their governor is a huge supporter, and there are multiple companies that give to their CS for Rhode Island effort. So we're learning a lot from the Rhode Island folks, and so I live here, I steal a lot of their ideas. So they're doing several of those script trainings in Rhode Island, and they're already following up with a lot of those districts. We will be doing the same in Georgia. So look out for that for your schools and districts. It'll be a district level training opportunity. So that I mentioned that because obviously this topic with Erin and Thomas County is about district level planning and support and resources, and we will be doing that slowly in Georgia. We're a much bigger state, and so it'll take a while to get everywhere, but you can always go to our website and find other tools for planning. Let me stop there. Brian, do you see any other questions that you want to go over? You're on mute, Brian.
I was looking back through some of them. I see April had asked about creating some space for the CTOs of the Georgia districts to cross-pollinate and share ideas. I think that's fantastic. It's definitely something that we can talk about. Whatever ideas, maybe that's something that we can do at the summit. We're looking for ideas for activities for students, and and also for teachers to come together and kind of show what computer science looks like, not only in their classrooms, but also in industry, so that we can spread the awareness of CS. So spreading from district to district and having these conversations between districts. Julie mentioned that was one of the largest benefits from the script training we did in Atlanta, was that the districts were able to come together and talk with each other about their plans and what they were doing. And it's never a bad idea to borrow ideas or some of the things that other districts are doing.
Great. Julie, I had a question for you, if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself. Would you mind, you shared a lot of good perspectives with us. I think Erin pointed out a couple of challenges with rural school districts. Would you mind sharing, from your perspective, what you've seen over the years in your experience? What are some challenges and some solutions that you've seen people like Thomas County try to do to try to address those challenges? And trying to provide CS education, but there's some unique situations that rural schools find themselves in that.
Right. So, hi everyone. My name is Julie Sharp, and I'm an evaluation and grant writing consultant, and I've worked with Thomas County for, 7 years or so, and I live in Tifton, so I live in rural Georgia as well. And I think one of the key things I have seen, I've worked with some other rural districts, is, and Erin mentioned that, is that local leadership, the support of local leadership in education, the high school principal, the superintendent, local industry leaders, the local technical college. The technical colleges can often help with some resources in terms of doing some of the career pathways and maybe providing things, is really figuring out who are your community champions that can help you with this, and who are your school system champions. And the other thing that I think Thomas has been a role model in doing and been very aggressive about. So they have a great CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, and he is just a wizard at looking at Title IV, Title I, local funds, eSplosh. So they were able to go to a one-to-one devices at the high school with Chromebooks through the use of some eSplosh, as well as then some competitive grants. So by combining those funding sources from local eSplosh, local funds, a state grant here and there, and then they've also developed their own sort of in-house professional development system that Erin was talking about, the tip day. So then also you're asking them. A lot of times good ideas bubble up from the bottom, from the school level, from the classroom level. And sometimes at the administrative level, we kind of forget that, and we don't always ask the folks down in the classroom, well, what do you think? Or what have you heard? Or what would you like to do? So as an evaluator, that's always my role. I'm the nosy lady coming through the schools, always asking lots of questions. But I encourage you to be asking your students questions, your parents those questions. Even in rural Georgia, you may have a parent who's a coach, might be willing to give a little bit of time or expertise. So it is a harder lift in rural Georgia. There's no question. We have broadband issues, we have accessibility, we have financing issues. I'm thinking of my friends over in Brooks County who I see on this call. We know it's tough, but I think that these are kind of forging a path that some of the other rural school systems can look at. And that's my speech.
Thank you.
Bill Brian is for asking me.
So we've got a few minutes left. Does anybody have anything else they want to share by unmuting themselves, asking any questions, sharing any ideas? Okay. Mr. Brian Cox, would you have any last thoughts before we sign off, and anything else you want to share about what's coming up this year in the world of CS in Georgia?
Like I said, I think this is an exciting time for everybody. Computer science is becoming a K-12 discipline, and more districts are getting on board and doing some wonderful things. At this point, now that we'll wait till tomorrow. I'm gonna cross off my fingers and wait till tomorrow. But we should have some K-8 standards to kind of help create the guidelines. The way I've been describing it is standards are the road. Like that's the ground of where we start. That's the basis. Teachers are the drivers. So for any professional development we do is like driver's ed. So as we build this road towards a computer science discipline and a far more technologically advanced state of Georgia, the more partners we have, the more people we have at the table, the more, like Julie was saying, the more cross-pollination we have between districts, the stronger we'll all get. So be eager to share if there are any conferences that are coming up that you want to go to, whether it's GBA or GACT or Field of Dreams or any of the conferences. You'll see some of those come across the MailChimp from CS for Georgia or from the EdWeb. Please come and share what you have. And if you're coming looking for ideas, those are great places to start. I know the STEM Leadership Conference is coming up at Seismic. There's a STEM Forum every year in Athens. These are great places to pull ideas and to get to get your feet wet in the computer science world.
All right. We are done. Erin, any last words? Thank you so much for taking your time out from a busy day and busy life and illnesses, but you and I both were going through. So thank you to you and everybody at Thomas County. Any last words, Erin?
I mean, I think the last thing I'd like to say is that, this work is hard, but it's worth it. Our students are worth it. my second grade daughter, just the other day, she was telling me, Mom, we went to science today and we did coding, and my partner and I could not figure out what was wrong with our code. And eventually something about the loop, she explained, and she was like, and then we got it. And I thought, that from her mouth, talking about the collaboration, the problem solving, and just all of those skills that were involved. And she doesn't even know what my job is. She doesn't even know that she knows what my job is, but she doesn't know how important it was for me to hear that. It wasn't like she was buttering me up. So to know that all of our students are able to access those types of learning activities, it just makes me feel a real sense of pride, and our kids are worth it. So.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I also went on Khan Academy to give my son. I thought, oh, this is going to really challenge him, and he was flying through it. So I went to code.org, and he loved it. It was supposed to be something, this is going to be the serious work. And I think a lot of the products are getting better. The teaching products are getting better with all the teachers' help and feedback and students' feedback. So let's continue. So I want to recognize the vendors are trying to do a good job to give us what we need so we can help the kids. And so thank you, everybody. This is it. I'm going to stop the recording, and we can